One of these days, I'm going to secretly record what happens in the Zoom during the countdown and put it out on YouTube. It's terrifying. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Rundown. Today, we're going to talk about technology and safety. And to the extent that technology can keep us safer, and some ways also that technology may threaten that very safety. What are the steps that we need to take to ensure that the technology that we've all grown to know and love doesn't take over? Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. When I say take over, some people may say, well, David, relax, no big deal. But holy moly, there are some things happening in our world with technology and AI now, the way it's growing. We're going to talk about it all today with some really fantastic friends, including, of course, Tamra. How are you, Tamra?
I am great now that I got my dance workout in.
Yeah. You're not the worst of it, though. It's Dave. That's the problem. The problem is Dave.
I liken us to the Muppets. I
Yes,
think we each have our little box.
a
and we're just
little bit like the
dancing away.
Muppets. Yes. So, Dave, which Muppet would you be?
She's animal. She
Yeah,
is
okay,
animal.
she's animal. So who are you?
Yeah, I think I'd be. Well, I'm an Elmo fan, so why don't I just take
No,
it?
you're definitely not Elmo. You're the chef. You're the Swedish chef.
Oh,
No,
that would work.
He
Yeah.
You're
could be
Beaker.
Elmo.
Is it Beaker? Is that his name?
Beaker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the guy with the round bald
The guy who
head.
just. Yeah, and he waves his arms around. A lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He goes.
That's
Beaker.
fantastic. So, Tony, who would you be? Tony.
I am not sure who I would be. I never thought about it like that. In terms
Fozzie
of-
Bear, man. Fozzie Bear.
Fozzie Bear. Okay, I'll take it.
Oh, wait a second. I think Sky's upset. Sky, who are you, Fozzie Bear?
Waka Waka.
Oh,
You
okay.
had-
I'm
I had-
sorry.
He could be.
You took my puppet and mupped me.
Sorry. I'm sorry. You could be Fozzie Bear, Sky. I apologize.
Thank you,
This
Tony.
is the dumbest intro we've ever done. Lois, I'm afraid to
You could have
ask. Miss
two
Piggy?
Fozzie
Big
Bears.
Bird. Big Bird.
Big Bird?
I don't know the Muppet characters. I'm sorry.
And
I'll
on
be
to the
Lois.
next person?
I'll be
What?
Lois.
How dare
The
you?
room went silent.
I know.
So Sky, pick one for me.
I said Big Bird. It's
Big
obvious.
Bird. Big Bird. Okay.
Big Bird. All right,
Loving
Big Bird.
character.
I do bird.
Everybody, and you love you are a
Caring
birder, so-
person and a
Oh yeah.
passionate
There you go.
Character.
And look who this character is. Talk about a character. Talk about a character. Hello, Mr. Paul. How are you?
Good. I'm not familiar with the Muppets either. So
Oh, for the
can
love
make
of
it turn it
everything
into
holy. What is wrong with you people?
Can you turn it into a multiple choice question? Give me like 3 choices, okay?
Well,
and I'll
Just
pick
a
one.
sign is something.
I know
Waldorf?
it's you've got Kermit,
He might be the Swedish chef.
Okay, Kermit. I'll go
Swedish
with Kermit.
chef,
There we go.
Go Kermit. You
Miss
know Kermit.
Piggy,
Waldorf.
What was the second one? The
Waldorf.
Swedish
Oh,
chef?
Waldorf, and what's the other guy's name?
Statler.
Statler. Yeah.
Oh,
Statler
yeah.
and Waldler.
You
Perfect.
said the
Those are my
Swedish
faves.
chef? Is that what you said?
They're the
But
guys
the
who
Swede-
sit in the back and just make fun of everyone. It's funny because
They're the theater guys.
in the clergy world, I don't know if Tony has this for in churches, but in synagogues, like we all there is a Waldorf and a whatever the other guy's name, like in every synagogue, in every temple,
Yeah.
there are two guys that sit, or two old guys that sit in the back. One is skinny and tall, the other one's a little fatter, and they just make fun of us. That's what they do. That's their job.
We steal the Methodists even use the word kibitz. So I don't know if that.
Oh
if we
yeah,
stole the
actually,
word.
kibitz works absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Paul, you be careful. Don't choose the Swedish chef because the Swedish chef character was unable to say things that people could understand.
Schmorg,
All right, I'll just-
work.
I'll just go with Kermit then. I'll be Kermit.
Can we please talk
I
about
like
the news?
frogs. Frogs are
On our faces.
No, I'm cutting you all off. We're doing the news. Okay. Two big news stories today. I'm not sure which one is scarier. Apple apparently is working to support brain implant control for its devices. Now, I happened to see last week, just by way of introduction to this, a piece about the Neuralink. Neuralink is its own business now, but part of Musk's companies, that they implanted it. And what was fascinating about it is that the gentleman in whom they implanted it was, he could not move at all. And the only way he could communicate was by using eye tracking. And there were two problems with the eye tracking that they were trying to solve with Neuralink. One was that he could never go outside in the sun because you can't see the screens and eye tracking doesn't work. And if God forbid there was an emergency, he would have no way of communicating. And the second problem was fatigue. Apparently, it's exhausting doing eye tracking. And so what Neuralink allows him to do is literally to think, and then it finds the words or the letters on the screen. Unbelievable technology. Now Apple's getting in the game. Do we really need brain implants to answer our phone calls and do all of
Do
this
our
work?
emails?
Is this just for people who have physical disabilities? Is this also for the rest of us? And who's first in line amongst you?
Did you actually watch the Apple description of it, or is it this all hearsay?
Well, it's not hearsay. It's from the Wall Street Journal article, which was explained this and what they were doing. They're working with a company called Synchron. The Synchron device effectively translates brainwaves, allowing a user to navigate around a screen and select an icon. Exactly what the Neuralink was showing. It works with a feature inside Apple's operating system called Switch Control, which literally switches control to a new input device like a joystick, or in this case, a brain implant.
So I'm going to jump in. You said the word need. But the question that I came to mind was, while in Haiti, we visited with a doctor that was working on prosthetic devices. So if you're talking about this as a aid to disability, the prosthetic devices that after an earthquake, a lot more people need some kind of help walking, getting an extra leg where the human part is no longer there. And they had come up with a injection mold that would be much easier to use, a whole lot less expensive, and it was available in the skin tones of choice, and it just made a lot of liturgical sense right up until the point when people wanted the one that was made out of metal, one that was shiny, and that was the more jewelry-esque style, and people that they didn't want to be seen as a cripple, but if they were, they wanted to be seen with a big fancy piece of hardware attached to their bodies. And it just mystified the volunteers, the missions people, but that was the aesthetic that people were going with. So there's the question of, what is humanity going to do? Oh, it's going to adopt it. And is it going to be helpful? It will be. But then it's back to humanity of, how do we manage it, or do we?
Yes. How do we manage it? To me, the question, Sky, is who is this for? Are we creating these tools for people like Mark Jackson, who is one of the early testers of this tool? He cannot stand up. He was, though, he felt himself peering over at the ledge of a mountain in the Swiss Alps, and he felt his legs shake. He was not in Switzerland, and he wasn't standing up, but he was wearing the what do you call it? The VR, the Apple's VR headset, and the Vision Pro, and that was connected to his implant. And so, for someone like him, I think this makes a lot of sense. For someone like me, who doesn't have those physical, I have many limitations, but I don't have those particular physical limitations. It feels more dangerous.
It's a better mouse, isn't it? It's a mouse in your head rather than in your hand. If it's only guiding.
That gentleman is the one person that we know about, because it also tugs at your heartstrings and makes whoever's producing this look pretty darn good, versus all the other people we don't hear about.
We also
but there's lots
don't
of
know how many people are needed by the company in order to be productive, profitable. So when Sky says people wanted shiny stuff instead of the thing that looked more like a natural leg, I'm wondering if it was just they could sell more of the shiny stuff. There probably were people who would prefer the natural leg, but maybe there weren't enough of them.
What do you, the natural leg? What do you mean? I'm not
He was talking about a leg that looked like a leg versus something that was shiny, glittery, and pretty.
Gotcha.
Well, this was also Haiti, and if you know anything about the country, that there's a challenge in economics down there. So,
yeah. So, okay, putting the chip in our brain, maybe that's a step too far. But what about if, instead of trying to give us super intelligence or super abilities using technology, what if we just let technology itself have those super abilities? So this next story, Alpha Evolve. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Google's Gemini program, but Gemini is their AI. It's like their Grok or their OpenAI. Well, apparently, about a year ago, they started using this tool, Alpha Evolve. And this is an artificial intelligence agent that can invent brand new computer algorithms and then put them straight to work inside the company's vast computing empire. What's amazing about this is that they've been using it in their data centers to boost efficiency, to solve mathematical problems that have stumped researchers for decades. And apparently it has saved 0.7%. They've had a 0.7% efficiency boost. And if you think about the amount of money that Google spends on all of this stuff, 0.7% is a huge amount. It's a colossal amount of money that this one new tool has used, essentially allowing large language models to learn better on their own. What do you think? What's your take on these types of advancements where technologies are just exceeding every possible, our wildest imaginations?
I see it going through a channel rather than an ocean. I mean, we as people have to solve and deal with and understand hundreds of simultaneous things. But if we didn't have all those things to worry about, then we would have more power to think through things or solve problems. I think the efficiency thing is a very interesting one because it goes back to our complaint with OpenAI wanting to take out the thank yous because it's lowering their efficiency and costing them money. So yeah, okay, save 7%. That's a significant amount. I guess what I feel like is when you put a chip in person brain who is ambulatory, who doesn't really need it and just wants it, it's like asking them to operate like a computer. It's going to ask them to look in certain places and do their thing without actually thinking much more than I need this to go there. So we only do that when we're in front of the physical keyboard or the physical screen. And then we go out and when we go cook a sauce, we have to make a whole lot of decisions. But I don't think an AI is going to beat me at making a sauce.
So we put a chip into our brains and we become more like computers. And
more like
at the same time,
yeah.
the computers are becoming more like us. This is from this article. This article, by the way, is from VentureBeat. Alpha Evolve improved the very systems. Hear this out. Alpha Evolve improved the very systems that power itself. It's improving itself. It optimized a matrix multiplication kernel used to train Gemini models, achieving a 23% speed up for that operation and cutting overall training time by 1%. For AI systems that train on massive computational grids, this efficiency gain translates to substantial energy and resource savings. I was listening to a talk today, a TED Talk with, oh goodness, what's his name? The former CEO of Google. Before such, oh my goodness.
We forget them so
quickly. You need
quickly.
a brain chip in there to memorize.
I know I do. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name.
Right, if you had that brain chip, it would just tell you.
He was
You'd
talking
never forget
about,
a thing.
Right. He was talking about how one of the things that we have to do is we always have to know how these tools can better themselves and be in control of that process. We have to be in control of the computers can never, and here's the example he gave. He said, I could imagine one LLM, one computer, one model saying to another model, you know what, talking in English, using English as our communicative language, it's very inefficient. Let's create a new one. And then very quickly, they're talking in a language that we don't understand.
Yeah. Morse code probably, but what the heck,
Whatever it is. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
So,
or an ancient language that we don't use anymore. Yeah.
Right.
David, you said something there that they're talking to each other.
Right.
Are they really talking to each other?
I'm not sure it matters, Lois. If they're able to communicate. Look, if Alpha, what is it? Alpha what? Alpha Omega? No, Alpha Evolve. If Alpha Evolve is able to communicate in whatever that means, it's able to have an impact on another machine or system or tool.
Operation.
That's a form of communication.
And that has been happening for a long, long time. I mean, I don't understand the ones and zeros that we used to put in the punch card for the original computers. I never do that. I didn't ever learn BASIC or C or any of those programming languages. So the fact that it's all translated into English and then back into something that the computers use, that's been going on a long time.
Right, but we know what the
language has
computers
always
use
been
because
there.
we wrote that language.
No, we did not write that language. Somebody else wrote that language.
Humans wrote that language. It is capable of
Humans,
being
yes.
understood. What I'm talking about
Yeah.
is when the tools decide that even that any human languages are inefficient because
And unnecessary. Yeah. They already do
Well, I'm
that.
with you on
we
the.
won't
I'm with
need
you.
we won't need computer programmers. We'll need more linguists
maybe
to
Maybe.
decode the language.
right.
So I
I
think we're
the
getting off.
no
what we started
we're always off. The
We're always
I'm at
off.
least off.
That's right on.
We are. Boy, I feel like I say something like this every week, and I'm not an alarmist because I love this stuff. I do feel like we are nearing a real turning point in the capacity that these tools have. I think that, for the first 2 years that we had access, ChatGPT was sort of a cool party trick. Boy, we're just when it can improve itself, that's just a whole different ballgame.
Have you
think.
seen?
Well, I
have
will
you read-
tell
have-
you.
Hold on one second. Sky and then Tamara.
Have you read the book Ready Player One? Have you read the follow-up Ready Player Two? Because it asks this question in a fantasy kind of way, and that's when my synapses connected, and my son said, Star Wars is not science fiction, it's science fantasy. It's cowboys in space. So it's the same old story, just in a different location. So as we're exploring story and what the future is, Ready Player Two talks about this question, and it in a fantasy concept, but we are now living in my dad's world in 1969 when men physically landed on the moon. He had grown up on a farm pulling, plow with a horses.
Mhm.
So in that short amount of time, so
The
again,
world's completely different. Yeah.
the world is completely different, and how quickly technology. So to your 10-year timeline, it's like, well, that sounds well.
That sounds normal.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds well underestimated.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
these are the thought bubbles that pop out of my head.
Yeah, I got you.
Yes.
Tamara, go for it.
But I was going to. Oh,
Hold on
go
one
ahead,
second,
Tamara.
Dave. Sorry,
and
Tamara.
I'll follow her.
I could spend hours on science fiction because that was an area that I studied quite a bit on, but I'm going to go down a different route. So I asked ChatGPT today this question, and I don't recommend it for you, David, because basically it outlined the governance curve versus the capability curve. So the capability curve of AI and of computers is going at a certain trajectory, and the governance curve is going to another trajectory. And as soon as the capability curve outpaces the government curve by a certain distance, then that's when we would see more of a takeover. And so I said, well, they're like, you shouldn't be an alarmist, but you should be concerned. And I was like, well, how long will that take? And it was saying on the low end, like 7 or 8 years, and on the higher end, maybe 20 years. So that's kind of interesting to kind of think about. But knowing how quickly our governance curve goes versus our
We're
capability
screwed.
curve,
I mean,
I think we're
right?
on the lower end of that. Yeah, don't ask ChatGPT. It will work.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was
Amazing.
almost
Dave,
a
go
spit
ahead.
take.
Well, this tags right along with Tamara's concerns of the curves not meeting, because I think at some point we're all going to agree that every ambulatory robot needs a kill switch, and every operating system has to have a plug that you can yank out. So whatever format that takes, there has to be a command you can give something to stop the process. And until we can guarantee that mandate it for all things, even stuff we send out into space, we need to be able to have a stop button on them. And we have brakes in cars, and we have safety features in cars, and they all work pretty good, but we still tell the car how we want it to be driven.
Yeah. We Joe Callie is saying in the chat that we have brakes on the stock markets to keep computer algorithms from crashing the markets. Do we need this for AI in the marketplace? And Victor
We do.
Hernandez says that Facebook's artificial intelligence robots shut down after they start talking to each other in their own language.
Yeah, they did. They did it for about 5 minutes, and then everybody realized they were losing it, so they shut
And
them off.
right, and boy, I need to look up his name. I feel terrible. Eric Schmidt. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I can remember that. I'm sorry. And one of the things that Eric said is that the real question for us is, when is the pull the plug moment? Like, when do we have to know when that moment is? When we literally just unplug it from the wall.
I think we go with the three
And we have
rules
to
of
agree on when that
robotics,
moment
you know.
is.
So we're gonna
That's
So we're
the
gonna
key.
come to the 3 rules in the main segment. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Go ahead.
So
Lois.
that's the key is, how do we know when to pull the plug? And can we all agree on when to pull the plug? So, for example, when in the 70s and the 80s, there were people talking about the climate change is going to be and you have to get it done by a certain time or it'll be too late. And we're way past that time. And now we don't even have everybody agree that there's a problem, let alone that it's time to fix it. So I don't have much faith that everybody in the country is going to agree on how to handle runaway robots.
I think you're right about that, especially because money is such a big piece of this. These companies are not, their job is not to be moral. Their job is to be money makers,
You bet.
and money is a really corrupting force in the world.
Again,
we're gonna
stakeholder
Lois,
versus stockholder.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Stakeholder versus stockholder.
Yeah. A couple weeks ago, I mentioned that we hadn't yet talked about technology and how it has affected news, both consumption and creation of news. And I really want to do that because I think it goes to your point of how we can't all agree anymore on what's real. And I think a big piece of that is the way that news has been impacted, the telling of news. But I'm gonna push us forward here because I got problems, folks. I got problems. And
Help?
I don't. This will not come as a surprise to my wife or my daughter if they're watching. But I'm much more comfortable behind a camera than I am talking to a real human being.
Really?
I kind of hate people.
Surprise.
I don't.
You
I
hate
don't.
having to interact with unexpected people that might behave in a way
love
you
people.
don't
I
expect?
love people, but I don't. I just. I feel like I'm more, in some ways, authentically me when
Mhm.
I am digitized, and I don't mean a custom avatar. I've tried that. That's terrible.
Yeah.
But just
The
sharing
environment
myself
is
in
familiar
digital
and
space
comfortable. Yeah.
feels sometimes more. It maybe not more authentic. It feels more comfortable to me.
It's less scary when you
Yeah.
can turn off your video,
You're
turn
absolutely
off your
right.
sound,
Yes.
and you can control how you look,
Right.
what you're doing. And if somebody gets wild and crazy, you can just, well, I don't know, make
Turn
them
down the volume.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
No, it
I
is.
think
You've
there's
got the.
I think that's a good thing. I think you're logical and sane. I don't think that you need tech therapy. I think you're doing just fine.
Oh my God.
Didn't-
Thank
didn't we
you.
used
There's
to
a group
have-
of people in boxes.
I feel so much better about myself.
Yes.
Didn't-
No, I
didn't
think
we-
she's quite right. Yeah.
Do
Go
any of the
ahead,
rest of you
Sky.
feel that way, or is this?
No, I do, but I also have thought about it a little bit, and I think
you're
that
like
some
a
of it has to
stage
do with,
performer, though. That's so funny to me.
which is hilarious
Yeah.
because I am a backstage girl. I
Yeah.
am not an onstage girl at all. So anybody who sees me on camera is like, who is this person? Right. But here's the thing. I think that part of it is that we're able to have lots of shared experiences together. I also think that you're able to like rest in different ways in between. Although I'm like a professional Zoomer, I spend like 12 hours and I'm like an Olympic level, which is wild to me. Like wild that I could even imagine doing that. But I think that some of it is that you are able to see people over and over again. So which doesn't happen for me in real life. I see people, once every couple of months, once a year, to have shared experiences where we get deep in the weeds and learn something new together. And I think that that's something that we don't do in real life anymore. We don't learn new things together. And our community in particular, we see each other kind of at our worst, at our struggles, trying to figure something out. And I think that that creates a very different kind of experience than we do when we go to like a cocktail party.
Speaking of cocktail
We
party,
all
Victor says, I used to be a people person, but people ruined that for me. Which is so
People
true.
be peopling.
and being a person who likes to be on stage means that I like to be on Zoom. I mean, it's controllable. It's controllable.
Right.
That's
And
where I
and
was
I
going
do
to
So
like
go.
being on stage. You're absolutely
And
right.
that's where I was going to go. Dave, have you ever done the Venn diagrams of your life?
No.
In the construct of your family is one circle, then your synagogue is a different circle, and then your job is a different circle, and then where do they overlap? How much do they overlap? And I think, yeah, Lois just nailed it with regards as a control factor. But Tony actually taught me the aspect of a conversation because he's exercised that experience now over a two-dimensional camera medium, and it's an authentic and initially we were experimenting with the Mad in the Kitchen experience, which was a performance. And I was also simultaneously working with Graham Kerr and understanding his history on television as being authentic in front of a camera, in front of an audience. Talk about complicated. But what I discovered with that was he is a different human, but he had to work at it. And the masks that we put on, to Tamara's point of an actor, as an actor, I understand that. But we did experiment with just having a conversation in a safe, trusted environment versus performing and having
Yeah.
the energy and the personality and that patina that you talk about on a something that's shiny and glossed on only a quarter of an inch deep. So
Tony, can I ask
yes,
you a question? Do you think, building off of what Sky just said, because you've spent decades speaking to people and having conversations with people face to face, and now you've spent a couple of years doing it digitally, do you have a sense that people are either more comfortable or more real or more honest or more authentic in one of those two, either when they're on Zoom or whether they're in person? Do you have a sense of one or the other?
It's very interesting when you think about it. It's kind of, you asked a question that I'm struggling with right now, and the reason why I'm struggling with it is because
Wait, before you tell me why you're struggling, do me a favor and just scooch over to your left closer to your mic for me. Thank you.
so I'm struggling from the standpoint that we are in the process of building a new church building. And there is a huge desire to be in a building. And the conversation is that we will continue to do what we're doing virtually, but we want to do a hybrid because the desire of the individuals that are right now virtual, they want to be in a building to worship together. And for me, it's complicated from the standpoint that I think that you can have as authentic conversations as you want in the virtual space. But there is something about actually being in person. And so the fellowship of being in person can be fantastic. But at the same time, under the right conditions, the interaction that you can have in a virtual space can be as authentic as an in-person experience. And so to get back to your original question, it's a struggle for me because when I am preaching, if I'm preaching in a virtual space, I'm supposed to be looking directly into the camera. But in an in-person preaching, I am looking at the community. And so it's very different. Both can be authentic, but they are very different.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
I'm struggling with, even like this coming Sunday, I'm speaking. And so I have to be mindful that I need to be looking directly ahead. There's a lot of, I originally was going to say to your question that it depends on the age of the community. It makes a difference because, as I've shared in times past, that I am part of the younger group of of this particular congregation. So that tells you a lot about, they are not really, I think because I'm so nerdy that I'm different than them, even though I'm basically the same age as them. And so they are not as interested in all of this as I am. And I think most people are not, most people that are of my age are not. And so,
Tony, I think most
um,
people that are
w-
normal are not. I mean, we're all,
And yeah,
you know, I
well,
we
woke
are
up,
yeah.
abnormal in some
I
sense.
got a message this morning from one of my friends saying, I got it, I got it. I knew exactly what he was talking about. It was the fifth button in Zoom that lets you do voice records, and that made my day that I got a stupid blue button on my Zoom app. So there's nothing normal about us. Um, and
Is
and
this
I
helping?
but having said that, I think you're hitting on an important point, which is that it's not just age, but also comfort level with technology. Also, either allows you to come off as more comfortable and authentic in digital space. And yeah, Lois, go ahead.
Yeah.
So
But
David,
I
can I
think it's
just
a
say
shared
can I
experience
just say
because
one thing
Hold on one
in
second.
terms of
Tony,
we just,
Lois, and then Tamara and David, and then everyone else. Tony, go.
I think back to the last conversation that we were having about AI and that whole thing. That there was an article, or not an article. There was a video on YouTube that I watched, and it was talking about the fact that um, AI was being trained in some ways that were not positive for humanity, and the 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 argument was that it's important for as many people as diverse as possible to be able to use AI from the standpoint of that it has a holistic perspective of humanity and not just be a we
For
have to be careful
nerds.
about the
Yeah.
people that select to inform the AI so that it is more holistic and also more back to our conversation last week in terms of empathy and those kinds of things. And so I just wanted to say that it's important, I think, for us to reach out to as many people as possible to encourage them to play with it from the standpoint of at least it has a more diverse perspective. And that's all I wanted to say.
Agreed. Lois, go ahead.
You know, Tony talks and I lose my train of thought all the time. It just, when we,
Tony, that was a
when we're,
compliment. That was a compliment.
that is a compliment,
I
honey, but
said
you kept me
sorry.
thinking. No, no, you kept me thinking, and then okay. So when we were talking about the authenticity, and we are now, those of us in this room, trained mostly by office hours to look directly in the camera. And that's exactly how you're supposed to look when you're talking to but people in a human situation, when they're face to face, they're used to your looking at the entire audience and they get a contact just right there. But you talk, those people who have grown up in a normal space, not a Zoom space, are going to be just fine if I look over there and then I look over there. They're just going to think that I've got an audience in front of me in addition to the camera. So don't worry about it.
Here, if
Well,
I
I'm so
may,
gonna crawl up in your grill on that. This is a human space, and B, this is now normal. So that's just me
and
being
C,
offended.
I would say that because this is not me in front of an audience, and because people know that, I think that when you're not looking at the camera in this kind of an environment, I think it looks strange. I was actually watching an interview the other day, and I got so frustrated because they had all of these side shots of the person looking at something. Like, why? What? There was one person in the room. There was no one else there, and it was obvious to me. It was just the dumbest shot. I couldn't understand it. Tamara, go ahead.
When we do the Birding with Lois show, we have at times figured out where we're going to be in relationship to each other, and I can point down there, and there's Sky.
Right.
And when we all do that, then it's a play. I mean, we're playing with things, but it just feels. I think it feels good.
Sure. Well, all you have to do is set the grid to follow a host's order, and then you're good to go. Tamara, go ahead.
The evolution of Zoom kind of reminds me a little bit of the IRC. Those of you who are old like me, we'd meet in digital spaces where we didn't actually get to see each other, what they looked like or how they interacted into the world. And I remember just feeling like whatever group you were in, you could have, if it was a repetitive experience, you could have really deep conversations with people you literally didn't know. You didn't know what they looked like. You didn't know any of that. And Zoom has kind of extended that a little bit. If you even look at our show, the first few episodes, we interacted with each other very differently. We're much more comfortable with each other because we know kind of the ebbs and flows, and we don't feel like, oh, I'm stepping over someone or they're stepping over me. And so even the culture of this particular show and the conversations that we have a little more fun together. It's not as, dry as it was even even 6 months ago. So I think that evolves, but those kind of experiences, they cultivate in different ways. For me, I don't think they replace. I don't think it's either or. I don't think it's like we should be in person or we should be in digital spaces. I think that both things have value. And for me, I do not waste time in person anymore doing performative things. I literally, if I don't feel like going to a, weird mixer where I don't know anybody, I just don't. I'd rather meet with someone one-on-one in a Zoom space and get to know them better and leave those in person, that time on my schedule for people like family and friends that I really care about and people I really want to meet. And I found that my in-person interactions have been 1,000 times more valuable than they were prior to this last 5 years in Zoom.
I agree 100%.
But they do have a free bar, and you get some cool swag if you go to these meetings sometimes. So
absolutely not. I'll give up on the free bar and swag for sure.
As a welcoming experience, I'm going to see what our friend Paul might have to say. But I'm not the host, but that's just wanting to.
I want to hear what our friend Paul has to say also. Can I just say, as Paul is finding his unmute button though, that based on what Tamara just said, that did you know that today is our 30th episode? Which
wow,
we've 30. Now
crazy.
I know that's like not a big number, but I love you guys.
I mentioned that to someone
just got
today, though.
mushy.
I was like, we've been doing this for 30 episodes.
30
Kinda
episodes,
cool.
yeah.
That's
Paul,
30 weeks plus.
30 weeks plus, yeah. What's up, Paul?
So my communications model is the ham radio, and we have 2 meters, repeaters, and HF, a certain protocol of talking, and the difference between this and ham radio is push to talk. When you're talking, you're not hearing anyone else. No one. If someone keys up, you don't hear them. You're talking, and so we've developed a protocol in ham radio where we follow an order of, if there's 5 people in a conversation and they're Bob, Jim, Joe, and me, we go Bob, Jim, Joe, Paul, and we follow that in a circular way where we talk. It seems to work pretty well because you can't interrupt anyone because they can't hear you, if you're talking. And there's an order to things, whereas is in random conversation like we're doing, there's some people that tend to never say anything. I look at these Zoom meetings and they're dominated by certain people, dominate the meeting. So I'm trying to break out of the ham radio
Paul, I'm
model
one
and
of
get
those
more
people.
into the Zoom model now.
I'm the dominator. That's what I do in Zoom
I resemble
meetings.
that remark.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But we've
I'll bring it
gotten
home.
good at taking turns at dominating, and I think
Yeah.
David's calling on people occasionally helps us
Helps
with
remind us that there's formality here sometimes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It-
No,
it-
I think, David, your problem, as you outlined earlier, is a matter
do
of
I
comfort.
still have a problem? I've completely lost
Yeah.
track of the fact that this
She's given you the confidence to say there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, and that's true.
good.
But we all change faces when we have different situations. And it's a similar thing in business. When you're going to see the boss, you put your jacket on. And then you head up to the 5th floor to see what they want to yell at you about. So it is a mode that we've all become comfortable in. One of the things we always remember in office hours is the mode also includes being able to clearly see the person so that you know they're paying attention or you're paying attention to them, hear the person, and understand the level of, if they're going too far in an academic way, they get brought down with, make that simple. And then we get to it. So I think in the sense, this is a freewheeling conversation with you just sort of guiding us along with your cane and herding us around. But I think, your comfort with this is a I'm going to call it a talent. And you do other performances in other environments. And we often perform for our children just to, engage them in a different way. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the real you being somebody other than who you think you ought to be. So
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, let's go to the scary stuff. You ready for this?
Dun, dun, dun.
This is the video that made the rounds this week. Let me actually, hold on a second. Let me mute it because I'm afraid, I don't know if there's a take, I can't imagine there's a takedown. But so these gentlemen are working on a robot in China, and then the robot absolutely loses its mind. It looks like it's chasing that guy. And then finally, I think they just unplug it. Going back to the unplug question from before. So what I thought we'd talk about today is the general idea of safety and technology. Seeing that until this week, that felt like that stuff from a movie. That's stuff from a science fiction show.
that's RoboCop all over again.
But-
Yeah.
But David, that robot wasn't chasing anyone. It was flailing its arms and legs because somebody had programmed it wrong, and it was flailing its arms and legs. I don't think there was any intention to harm. I mean, I think people put a story to an event that had absolutely nothing to do with the event.
Well, I'm going to catch you right there because my toaster oven tried to attack me. So no, it nearly took my life because it failed. It would have set my kitchen on fire because
My
it was
refrigerator
going to
exploded.
fail. So yeah, things defrost and suddenly you get puddle all over the plumbing fails. Every technology we have has a mean to failure time, and computers are also one of them. And the more critical the situation, the more accurate the system has to be, the more we try and put safeguards on it. So every aircraft that I've ever had to deal with has safety upon safety upon safety, not only procedural safety, operational safety, mechanical safety, and material safety. And they always have backup to backup to backup. And when those three fail, the humans have to take over. So I think we're just, we're seeing an interesting video about some robot that was poorly programmed. It reflects more on the two researchers than it does anybody else, but it's probably happened many times without a security camera seeing it. And so that's why we don't know this happens almost all the time. When inventing a new thing, it sometimes blows up on you in the room. You get all your eyebrows burned off, and then later you recover from it and you know what you made your mistake for. So I'm not afraid of technology generally. I'm afraid of what it does to us. If this video makes us afraid of technology, it's going to have consequences, both, as we talked earlier, about regulation, and it's going to affect how people see each other in the business of creating helpful devices.
And
we don't know that didn't happen to these particular people because they had that robot on a crane and not on a remote control. So we don't know that wasn't something that they've already experienced and they just happened to get caught up on. My thing isn't that. I think that we do have to have switches and all of those things for technology, and we have to be really concerned about that. I think my concern is that we're nerds, guys. We're concerned because we're kind of in this field and we're taking a look at it. But like, I talked to someone this week who was like, I don't even have a Zoom account. I was like, what? Who doesn't have a Zoom account? Because my community has multiple paid Zoom accounts in various different elements. So I think that it's the concern for me isn't the idea that we don't have the ability to put controls on it. It is really the people who have the ability to put controls legislatively are way behind the curve on technology in general.
We're
so I
paying
think
attention.
that scientists who deal with it and people who are technology enthusiasts, we get it. But these conversations, by the time that they happen within the general population and within people who are making those things, are miles off.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw it to Sky. I just want to say that I agree, Lois. This robot was not. There was no intent behind it. The only reason it looked like it was flailing around and it didn't just crumple on the floor is because it was held up by that crane. Having said that, the fact that Alpha, whatever the heck is called, Omega, whatever that first thing was called from Google with Gemini, Alpha what? Alpha, I want to get it right, Alpha Evolve. The fact that Alpha Evolve can now improve itself and train other AIs and improve other AIs. Now that robot didn't have intent. That doesn't mean that tomorrow it won't do so. Sky, go ahead.
Well, I'm kind of fascinated that this private company let that camera feed out to the world, because it's like that doesn't make these accidents happen when you're researching and developing a new product. As Dave said, there's thousands of hours put into airplanes and other machinery that we now rely on, but historically would have been thought was, from a different world, different universe, different planet. Now, the other quote that I wanted to share was in 1980s, flip that, dyslexia strikes again. 1890s, William Randolph Hearst, just down the road from Lois, big giant, person that had a lot of newspapers, used the phrase, if it bleeds, it leads. And what I'm coming from is, in the newspaper world, you wanted to get people's attention because you had to sell papers to sell advertising. And consequently, I looked into this, and sure enough, the link that you gave us is a advertisement, full of advertisements on that page, and I would had to click through all of that clickbait. So I'm kind of anxious about how are we a part of the problem in promoting the anxiety in our conversation?
Fair enough. Let me take you back to 2022, when the 6 leading.
Oh, sure, you got your words correct.
Sorry,
2020.
Agility
That's
Robotics,
just a bunch of twos.
Anybotics, ClearPath Robotics, Open Robotics, and Unitree all said together. They were the 6 leading tech firms back then in robotics. They said that they warned us that advanced robots could result in huge benefits, but could also be used for nefarious purposes. So much so that they pledged not to weaponize their advanced mobility general purpose robots or the software that makes them function. And they said they were trying to make sure that their customers didn't weaponize the company's products also. I don't know how you keep someone who purchases your
I don't know how you
robot.
program
I have no idea
morality.
how you do that. But
Yeah.
the fact
Yep.
that in 2022, when robotics was nothing like it is today, that they were already worrying about the weaponization
How
of
it would
these,
go.
of these
Sure.
tools. Okay, the link that we saw, and that may, maybe that one, like, I don't need that video to be accurate or even true for it to hold some truth within it. And the truth within it, I think, is that we are, again, in uncharted territory that holds tremendous potential and I think some real danger also. Yeah, Tony, go ahead.
I hate to keep going back to this, but I think even you said this, David, either in this session or on Zoom Test Kitchen. Garbage in, garbage out, and the programming of AI. What we're going to be putting into these robots. There has to be something that either teaches them to be ethical or has the ability for, in their creation of advancing their own programming, that there is a ethical protocol that's a part of their learning process. If there isn't, if it is in fact, just zeros and ones, and there is nothing that can sort of move toward compassion and empathy towards human beings, that is problematic. And the example that I think that we can think about is the original purposes for the conversation around drones was that they could deliver packages and they could take fantastic photographs and stuff like that. Now we see that drones are now armed with weapons. And so if there is not some type of, and maybe ethics can't be programmed. Maybe that's impossible. Maybe I'm pipe dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
But if we have the capacity to engineer artificial intelligence, then we need some way to program the ethical human intelligence into the process.
I always follow Tony here because, this is tradition here, Paul. We're talking about a child without parents. A robot left to make up its own world is going to lose control. And anybody who's seen a kid on too much sugar, they're going to lose control. So I think the sense that we've got that a moral lesson has to happen, and it has to be done by training a robot. You wouldn't be able to buy one without it living with you for a while under supervision and it understanding your rules and the rules you have about we don't hit our kids and we don't throw things and we don't break windows just because we need air. So all of the things that might be decided by a child is usually governed by parents and the people who brought them into the world. And I think we're going to have a situation like that. We don't want a general government rule for this. We want a process by which the thing developed just for the purpose we want is constrained by that purpose as we taught it. And then if it goes outside that, it has a kill switch. So a research group I know of had an aircraft that if it were to lose control and leave controls disappeared, it would have pre-programmed a path to go to for safety. And if that path wasn't available, it would simply ditch in an open area. And the aircraft did lose contact. It did go through its routine and was a huge success because it went into the ocean. So I think we have systems in place where if it goes wrong, here's what happens, or here's what must happen. And then the thing has to go to the corner, plug itself in, and sit down because it doesn't want to hurt the child who was misbehaving. So, yeah.
Lois, go ahead.
If you recall, Isaac Asimov wrote a lot of stories about robots, and he created the famous 3 laws of robotics. A robot can't injure a human being. A robot must obey the orders of the human unless such orders would injure a human being. And a robot should protect itself as long as it doesn't injure humans. So that's all really nice. But who are the people who are going to try and install that? I am more afraid of the people than I am of the robots themselves.
I don't know.
Because-
Did you see iRobot? I mean, those 3 laws didn't really work.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, even if we have those 3 laws, we have people today who would go, we don't need those laws, throw those away and do something else and make me more money. And we, normal folks, would never know the difference.
Here's
We see that now, though.
right, and I think that to
we
me,
see
Lois,
that in how America. Go ahead.
No. Please go ahead, Tamara.
Oh, I was going to say we see that now in just the fight between the European Union wanting to put constraints on AI and America saying, yeah, we're not really interested in that because it's a commerce thing. And I think that we can't agree right now on what those controls are. I think Dave is right. That's going to have to come with the adults being the people who are programming. But Lois is right too. If there's a person in there with nefarious intent, then we are in trouble. Like there's no switch.
But Tamara, my question is, look, yes, we don't need robots to kill us. We are doing a very good job of that ourselves.
We're doing a good job.
You know, we're the biggest problem we will ever be for ourselves. But we know how to handle us. When we go rogue, when human beings do things, we understand that. We know how to. We may not be effective. We may not be able to stop it altogether, but it's familiar territory. What I'm talking about is not when we misprogram an LLM or a robot or something, but when we lose control, when it doesn't matter anymore that I didn't program it well, that I didn't catch that bug, that I didn't build in a failsafe. That's what I'm thinking about. And again, as Tamara said, maybe it's 7 years, maybe it's longer. We are not far away from a time when these tools are building themselves and others like them. And again, hey, bring it on. I'll be the first in line to, sign me up. But boy, that's it.
This is making me convinced that storytellers are not going to go away, because these conversations were started by science fiction writers hundreds of years before they happened, and we're even basing this conversation on storytelling that was projected ahead of time. So it's, to me, for all of the things that AI is going to take away from us and that robotics are going to take away from us, having people who can imagine a future and imagine a solution are going to be safe and will continue to do that.
I trust the artist to tell us the future.
So what would Socrates say, Tamara? Because as an original storyteller, and we only have 7 stories, we just keep reliving them. Where does that fit into the Socrates story?
I have no idea what you're talking about, Sky.
Philosophy.
Tamara does.
There's only 7 stories? What is this?
Oh, yes. That's what he declared. Yeah, back in Greek times, he declared there were only 7 basic stories of humanity.
And
doesn't mean he's right.
Lois, it's like take
Robert McKee also talked about it.
Take any modern song. it's the same four chords. It's the same four chords, just mixed and matched. That's so yes,
Sung by a younger voice.
yeah.
And every human voice has the same tones and pitches, but what you say using those
Right.
can be very different. I would like to bring our attention back to how we have handled similar things in the past. And that's, how do I put that? We learned how to handle a technology, and sometimes, and for some cultures, it was simply ignore it. So when I grew up back in the 70s, most people had televisions, but some families chose not to watch television because they didn't like what it was going to do to their kids, and so they didn't have televisions. Well, this is different, I think, because whether or not you or I choose to use artificial intelligence, other people are doing it, using it, making stuff with it, and so it's going to be part of our lives. It's sort of like plastic. You know, you can be as ecologically minded as you want, but other people are still using plastic.
Gary says that drones can go up and down, left and right, but they have no clue that a bomb is attached.
Yep.
And again, it goes back to that: will there be at some point consciousness? Right? Again, the robot going berserk, whether it's even if it's not conscious, it's just scary. The berserk robots are just scary because anything that's big and metal coming at you is scary. Layer on top of that the potentiality for consciousness, intent.
Well, what's the acronym, Dave? AGI is the next evolution of.
Artificial general intelligence.
General intelligence, yeah.
Yeah.
What does that mean in this conversation?
Well,
I mean, what is
the understanding in a cultural sense what everyone's really referring to. We use a lot of metaphors. We use a lot of we just did. We invoke Socrates, right? And we jump like that as humans. We jump from lily pad to lily pad in our conversations and bring in references that maybe I have to explain to people because it's the only reference is in my culture. So in the sense that a robot might have to learn all that stuff, it would have to be civilized. In we call the sense of civilizing our children. And I'm all for doing that, but we need to have processes whereby whatever technology, whatever manufacturing of this technology, either in boxes or robotized and mobile, like delivery robots, which I've seen and they're hilarious, but because they make them into cartoon characters kind of, and that way they're friendly instead of freaky. But the sense of being afraid of what's going to happen next is a natural human reaction. We used to have urban myths of cats in microwaves and ghosts in your back seat that you picked up on the highway. And these kind of things are just lessons for us. So this video is actually just sort of a tweak, saying not only to get eyeballs to stare at it, but the eyeballs want to stare at it because they want to know what are the implications? And those implications include a berserk thing. And I have devices behind me that are very sophisticated, and sometimes they went berserk, and I had to reach over and stop things from continuing. So I have an hourglass that's completely unthreatening, like totally unthreatening. Best technology ever invented.
By the way, I just sorry, Lois. I just wanted to say for one thought, and that is that when you look at the types of humanoid robots that are coming out, there's the reason that we're making them humanoid is not because that's the most efficient model. I mean, why give something feet? That just really doesn't make a lot of sense. There are much better modes of transportation than feet. The reason, I think, is because we are trying to normalize them. We want them to look friendly. We want them to look
or
like
get the Senate
anthropization. Yes,
right.
Or get the Senate to pay to pay for it, because you don't have to have aerodynamics when you're out in a space that doesn't have air.
Right.
Disney took wild animals and made them friendly. Yes, we do it all the time.
Yep, absolutely. Lois, can I get Tony in, because it looks like he's about to fall out of his seat? Give me 1 second. Tony, go ahead.
No, no, I'm not about to fall up my seat, but it was interesting that reference you just made, because last night's conversation with Tony Mobley, I had Ken Jordan on. We were talking about why, with the ability to create these amazing AI personalities, that you go with Pixar type of AI.
Yeah.
And his whole argument was that people are uncomfortable with AI personalities or avatars that look like real people.
Yeah.
And he said in the business world, they want them to look like cartoons. And the other thing is that if the cartoon says something, you can contribute it to an actual cartoon, as opposed to it looking like, let's say, a political person, and they make this outlandish statement.
Right.
Well, because the AI is so good, you might wonder, is that the person or not? But with it being a Pixar person,
Right.
then
That's not even so much about the AI. That's when Stephen Colbert used to talk about how he loved when he was on the old show. The what was it? What was I forget what the other
His show,
before the
his
before
talk show. Yeah,
before. In any case, he could say things because he was he was playing a character. He could say things that he would never be able to get away with. And so when we put on a mask or put on a character, it gives us license to perhaps give expression to things that, we wouldn't be caught dead saying.
that's what the gesture is for. Yes.
Right, exactly.
Making
right.
fun of the king.
So
He stands behind the king and mimes him.
Pre-AI, very pre-AI. Lois, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So we've been talking about robots and that sort of thing. I want to bring in two other things that I hope we get to. One is autonomous vehicles. They're scary. I'm going to stop there. But the last one is the most scary, and this is biotechnology. This is our ability, our as a human race, not our individually, ability to take parts of this and parts of that and parts of that and make a whole new thing out of it. The article that David found and gave to us to read was very extensive, was very amazing. I learned an awful lot. I learned what a CRISPR was. I never knew what that, it was just a word. But the stuff that is being done today has the potential for great good and great harm. And it depends on who is in control of that technology. And I know that there are things where there are agreements between nations as to what they're going to do, and no more mustard gas, no more weapons like that, bioweapons. But in today's world, do you have the confidence that the governments of all those nations are actually going to abide by that agreement? I don't.
Yeah. It's a really, really good question. And of course, what you've just brought out, and we're not going to get to all of this today, but what you just brought out is that the tremendous power that we now have developed around biotechnology can, of course, be used for really terrible, nefarious things. And thank goodness for it, because in 2023, as you just mentioned, the CRISPR based gene therapy essentially cured sickle cell disease. And I hear people talking all the time about how AI is going to help us find a cure for cancer. So these tools that we have are, it's both sides of that same coin. Sky, did you want to jump in?
Just as brief as I can, the construct of rules, and I'm going, at a certain time in your life, you reevaluate, who are you, what are you doing, why are you here? And the concept of having a rule of life is something I'm looking inward at. And in the teaching that I'm listening to, the construct was, well, how about you think of it like a trellis rather than, if rule is upsetting you, think of it as, you're harvesting out in the vineyard and you want to guide where those vines go. So in the rule of life, in the rule of making rules, to think of it as a trellis to be more productive rather than destructive.
Yeah. And I hate saying this. I hate quoting this, but I can't help it. The Spider-Man's uncle.
Mhm.
With great power
With great power
comes great
comes
responsibility.
great responsibility.
Responsibility.
I mean,
Everyone together now.
I think the fact that we're fearful about it is actually a friend to us in
Yeah.
a lot of ways, because as long as we're having these conversations, the second you should worry is when no one's worried, because
Well, you
that's
said that
when
before,
things can
Tamara.
go wrong.
I mean, you
Yeah,
said you
yeah.
brought out before that we're paying attention, but there are a lot of people who aren't. And you're right. That
Right,
worries
but-
me.
Mhm.
But the people who aren't are the fact that there are levels that are. We have scientists who've been talking about this for years and they've been paying attention. We're the next step that is paying attention.
Yeah.
If we stop paying attention and they stop paying attention, we should worry. Right. But as long as people are paying attention, that's great. I will offer up this one robotic thing that will send you on a little bit of a spiral in a positive way. If you look up World Robot Soccer, you will see much fun with humanoid looking robots playing soccer, which they do yearly. I highly recommend.
Okay, wait a
It
second.
will ease your mind.
More fun than a barrel of monkeys.
This is robot soccer. I don't think this is it. Is this it?
That doesn't look like robot soccer. That
this
looks
is
like
just
a
an
commercial
ad.
for
Oh,
something.
I'm logged
on
into the
some-
wrong account. Sorry. Okay.
Mhm.
Ah,
Sorry. I have a free
Just
account.
wait.
I have a there you go. Is this robot soccer?
it is. Let me see what the.
They're on wheels. Yeah, that's it.
There we
They're
go.
not on wheels. Oh, now these are faster. Look at the ones not on wheels.
What are they running
They've
around?
upped the game with robots that don't look like.
There's
you
a
gotta look for
there's
the
a
ones that look like
federation.
humans.
Robo Federation.
There's a federation,
Well, these guys all have wheels.
but
Wait a
not the
second.
ones on wheels. The wheels ones are probably the upgrade to the previous ones, but the previous
Hey,
ones.
we
are
used to
quite
have
fun.
robot battles on network television.
Oh, I
You know,
remember
and
the
it was
robot battles. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was inventive
Robot
and creative.
soccer.
That's what that was. Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh my goodness.
Wait till you see it, though, David. You're gonna come back next week. You're gonna be like,
I wasted a week watching people play soccer. Little things play soccer.
Yeah.
they're
Pretend
about
to
3 feet
know what
tall,
they're doing.
and they're not on wheels.
Yeah.
Wow. No, my new obsession is now baby AI. It's
Oh,
they
so good.
it's so good.
That's
Oh,
my
yeah.
favorite use of
Baby
AI.
podcasts, I think they call them or something. It's like they've got babies
Yep.
doing Joe Rogan. It's just fantastic.
I saw Baby Hamilton.
Yes, I saw baby.
I was like, this is
You'll
amazing.
be back. Yeah, I saw that too. Just
Baby
today.
King George.
Baby Princess Bride.
Oh, I saw
So
that
good.
also.
Yes,
So
Baby
good.
Princess Bride. Very good.
Oh,
I forget
how
who
sad.
it was. or
AI
maybe it
does
was,
wonderful things for us.
It
AI.
might have been Jay Leno who used to have somebody come on and have children reading speeches by important people and how ridiculous they sounded because
Mhm.
a child was saying it. Yeah. That's the same. Yeah.
Well, hopefully,
Been fun.
our future contains lots of baby AI and not so much of the death and destruction of the iRobot.
Drones with bombs. Yeah.
Right, drones with bombs. Exactly. Thank you all so much for being here and hanging out with me this evening. I appreciate it. Paul, I love having you here, but you gotta press that unmute button and
jump
just
in.
jump in, my
Jump in,
friend.
man.
I love having you here.
I'm just listening this time because I haven't been on in a while, but I'll jump in.
You're
I'll
all good.
Start
You're all
jumping
good.
in.
And let me say a quick hi to Peter Moore and Joe Kelly and Gary Lund, who are all watching online. It's good to see you here. And thank you so much for being here. And Victor Hernandez, amazing. Thank you, guys.
The thought
So-
that does come to mind is Jeff Goldblum's pithy wisdom. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
That doesn't mean you should.
That's true. There you go.
But
and with
we
that, my
should.
friends, the wisdom for the ages and for tonight. Wishing you all a wonderful, wonderful weekend. We'll see you next week on The Rundown.
Bye.
Bye.